Gökberk Demirci's story began in shadows of absence. While many children grow with the gentle balance of mother's warmth and protected companionship of a sibling, his early years were painted in different colors, ones of longing, silence, and resilience. He had his father, a man who became both anchor and compass in the unpredictable tide of life. But there were days when the missing laughter of mother and the bond of brother pressed heavily upon his heart. From a very young age, Gökberk understood what loss meant. It was not explained to him in complicated words, nor did anyone hand him a manual on grief. Instead, he learned it through the quiet meals where only two plates were set, through the echoing hallways where mother's song did not linger, and through the empty chair at the corner of his room where a brother's presence should have been. Loss was not a single event in his life. It was a companion that followed him, silently shaping the way he looked at the world. His father noticed this. Of course, a stern man by nature, hardened by his own trials, he wasn't one to easily display tenderness. Yet, when he looked at his son, he saw not just a boy growing into himself, but also a child carrying a weight too heavy for such young shoulders. He tried to bridge that gap in his own way. Some evenings, instead of sitting in silence, he would tell Gökberk stories, tales of courage, of resilience, of men who faced storms and refused to bend. His words were sometimes rough, sometimes softened with nostalgia, but to Gökberk, they were lifelines. Gökberk's childhood became an exercise in adaptation. Without a mother's nurturing hand, he grew more quickly into independence. He learned to prepare his own meals when his father worked late. He understood the value of order and discipline because his father, being both parent and role model, believed structure was the only way to fill the void left behind. While other children might have complained about chores or strict rules, Gökberk embraced them silently. Each task was more than just duty. It was a way to keep his mind occupied, a way to carve meaning into a home that sometimes felt too large for just two people. But it wasn't all discipline and silence. There were tender moments, too, moments that revealed the deep bond between father and son. On Sundays, when the sun stretched across the sky, his father would take him to the park. They would sit on a bench together, watching families pass by. Sometimes, Gökberk would glance at the children holding their mother's hands, and a pang would strike his chest. His father noticed. Always, without saying a word, he would place a strong hand on Gökberk's shoulder, a gesture that meant, "You are not alone. I am here." In the absence of brother, Gökberk learned to carry the idea of companionship within himself. He grew up imagining the conversations they might have had, the games they might have played, the secrets only siblings could share. This longing, instead of breaking him, deepened his empathy. He began to understand the invisible weight carried by those who walk the world with losses of their own. His sensitivity to others became one of his most remarkable qualities later in life, especially when he stood in the spotlight of acting. It allowed him to portray emotions not just with skill, but with authenticity, because he had lived through them. School, for Gökberk, was another stage of quiet resilience. He was not the loudest boy in class, nor the one constantly seeking attention. Instead, he observed, absorbed, and learned. Teachers often remarked on his seriousness, a maturity that exceeded his age. What they did not know was that behind that quiet focus was a boy who had been forced to grow faster than most. His classmates talked about trivial things, about weekend plans and sibling rivalries. Gökberk listened, smiling at times, but deep inside he carried a different world. One where silence spoke louder than noise, and where responsibility came before play. His father remained his guiding star through it all. Though strict, he was also deeply protective. He taught Gökberk the values of honesty, discipline, and resilience. "The world will not always be kind, my son," he once told him. "But if you stand strong, it will respect you." These words became etched into Gökberk's being, shaping the man he would later become, one known not just for his talent, but also for his dignity and strength of character. Yet, despite all the strength he carried, there were nights when the absence overwhelmed him. Lying in bed, he would stare at the ceiling and imagine his mother's voice singing him to sleep, or his brother whispering plans of mischief. Tears would come, uninvited and unstoppable, but he never let them defeat him. In the morning, he would rise, determined to honor their memory by living a life of purpose. That became his quiet vow. to make their absence meaningful by filling the world with something they would have been proud of. Art came as both a refuge and a revelation for Gökberk. The stage, the camera, the world of performance. These gave him a way to channel the emotions that words could not fully capture. In every role, he carried pieces of his story. When he played a man longing for love, it was drawn from the ache of missing his mother's affection. When he portrayed a brotherly bond, it came from the emptiness of never having one beside him. His audience felt it because it was real. Every tear, every smile, every flick of emotion was born from truth. Through it all, the bond with his father remained unshaken. They were not just father and son. They were comrades in survival. Their home was not filled with many voices, but the silence between them was never empty. It was rich with understanding. His father had given him more than discipline. He had given him the strength to endure, the courage to love despite loss, and the wisdom to find light in shadows. Looking back, Gökberk's life without a mother and brother was undeniably difficult, but it was also the crucible that forged his soul. The loneliness taught him compassion. The absence gave him depth. The bond with his father made him resilient. And all of it together shaped the man the world would later admire, not just as an actor, but as a human being who understood love, loss, and the beauty of perseverance. For Gökberk, life was never about what was missing. It was about what could be created in the spaces left behind. And in those spaces, he built strength, empathy, and a quiet, unshakable determination to live fully, for himself, for his father, and for the memory of those he had lost.